everybody, I'm back with Reincarnation Part 2. But before I get into today's stories, if you like the paranormal, strange, dark, and unnatural, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. So my first story is very well known. A lot of people know the story of Anne Frank. She was born in June of 1929 and she died in February or March of 1945. She was one of the most discussed victims of the Jewish Holocaust. And this is during World War II, during the German occupation of the Netherlands. And she was actually able to hide for 2 years behind a bookshelf in a secret room. And that was from 1942 to 1944. Ultimately, she was captured and taken to a concentration camp where she later died in 1945. She's mostly well known for the 1947 publication of Diary of a Young Girl. The part that you might not know is only 9 years later, a child would be born named Barbeau Carlin. And practically as soon as she could talk, she would start to say that her parents were not her parents and this was not her home. And as she got a little bit older, she would draw pictures of her home, and she started having horrible nightmares of men coming through the attic to capture her. She soon realized that she was actually Anne Frank, and she believed that she was Anne Frank reincarnated. And her parents eventually took her to Amsterdam. But before, they were on their way, their daughter, Barbeau, actually gave them specific directions on how to get to Anne Frank's house. They drove straight up to the house. She went in. She knew the house inside and out and actually took her parents to where she was hiding for those 2 years before she was captured when the men came through the attic door. So do you believe that Barbeau was actually Anne Frank? Let me know what you think in the comments. My next story is of Pramod Sharma, who was born in 1944 in India. Like I previously said, reincarnation in the East is almost expected. So, when he started to talk and when he was 3 and 4 years old, he would build these little shops and serve his family mud cookies and water. And he would talk about his wife and her cooking and what a wonderful cook she was. As a child, he would not eat curd, and he would highly discourage his family from eating curd. And he would go on to tell his family that this is how he died. He actually died in a bathtub after eating curd, and that he didn't want to touch it, and he highly recommended them not eat it. He would talk often of a place called the Mohan Brothers, and this is their shop where him and his family sold cookies and water. He would actually go on to tell his family that he was from a place, Moradabad. And this is like 140 kilometers from where he actually lived. And he would talk about his wife and her cooking and the cookies and the water all the time. And finally, his parents took him to Moradabad and they found the Mohan Brothers shop. Somebody that knew the shop and knew that verified, yes, they did sell cookies and soda. It was a soda and cookie shop, and they sold water and cookies, and also knew what had happened to the owner. And the person would go to explain that the owner had eaten some curd, and it caused gastrointestinal illness, and he was found dead later in the bathtub. So, do you think that this story is reincarnation? Do you actually believe that this child who had all these really vivid memories of the cookies and the water and the shop, knew the name, knew everything, is it a hoax, or did he really have a past life? Let me know what you think in the comments. My next story is of 2-year-old Cameron, who was born in Glasgow, Scotland, but he would say that he was from an island in Barrow, Scotland, off the coast. As he got a little bit older, he would draw pictures of this beautiful white house on a beach, and he said that planes would land there, and he recollected his black and white dog and the color of his car and Just lots of specific details. His family would later take him to the island where they clearly found the White House and an old picture of a black and white dog and the car that he had explained. He knew his old parents and their names and how they died. So do you feel like this is Cameron having memories of his past life when he's able to go to this house that he's been drawing for years that he should have no knowledge of, the photo of the black and white dog and the car and the names of his parents and how they died? Or is this all made up? Let me know what you think in the comments. My next story is of 4-year-old Ryan who lived in Oklahoma. He insisted from the time that he could talk that he lived on the hills in Hollywood. He could remember tap dancing on Broadway and just being part of, the hills on Hollywood and hanging with all these famous people. He saw a picture of the 1932 movie, Night After Night. He specifically pointed to somebody in the photo and said, "This was a friend of mine." He also pointed to another person and said, "This was me." Marty Martin, who did have a big house in the Hollywood on the Hills. He lived in this big, huge mansion, and he had a big in-ground pool, just like Ryan had explained. And he said he liked being Ryan, but he really wanted to go back to his house in Hollywood with his in-ground pool. He knew the names of his 3 sisters and would come to claim other 50 details of his past life as Marty Martin. He knew his 3 sisters' names. He knew the color of his car. Just all these very specific details. One really specific detail that cannot be debunked is that he knew that he had died at the age of 61, not the age of 59, which was written on his death certificate. So, do you believe that this is a case of reincarnation? Is Ryan actually Marty Martin? Let me know what you think in the comments.